Tuesday, October 26th meeting of the St. Bernard Community Improvement Corporation. If we could have a roll call by the secretary, please.
Jonathan Stuchel.
Present.
Tom Rolston.
Present.
Bob Culbertson.
Present.
Joe Brickler. Peggy Brickwig.
Here.
Ray Culbertson.
Here.
Chris Sauer.
Here.
Chris Schildmeyer. Jerry Wiedemann.
Present.
Amy Osmond.
Here.
So you all were presented with the minutes. Are there any corrections that need to be made to the minutes? And is there a motion to accept the minutes as read and suspend with the reading of the minutes? So we've got Jerry. Is there a second? As far as our treasurer's report,
The balance as of today in Fifth Third is $387,028.89. As far as expenses coming out of the account, we did have some roof repair above Dollar General that came out this month, as well as the demo for Long John Silver's. The demo was was $28,888. The First State account, I'm still waiting on a statement from them, so as soon as I get that, I'll update you. That concludes it.
great, thank you. As far as our action items, update on the pre-development agreement for the shopping center. We've been, of course, working with the developer at this point. The developer is in the process of preparing a term sheet for us that will be presented, will go into committee, and then, of course, be brought to the whole board as a whole to agree upon. As of right now, there's not a defined an exact timeline for the exact closing, but we are moving through the process, and it is looking promising. So at this point, again, we can expect something hopefully by the next meeting to have to present to the board as a whole to vote on. As far as property review committee, the property review committee met to discuss two topics. One, the first being an RFP for the Tower Avenue property next to the townhomes. At this point, the recommendation from the committee would be to move forward with a consistent style architecture to that as what is existing with a townhome footprint rather than single-family homes. So we will be working on preparing an RFP to actually, again, we'll be voting on this part, but as far as an RFP to have prepared, hopefully by the next meeting, to be able to get that advertised to make those properties available. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments? All right. So we will have the RFP prepared and be able to send out to everyone, at least to review beforehand. And then, of course, we'll be able to vote on that at the next meeting. As far as the proposal by St. Clement that was submitted for the purchase of property for the parcels that are owned next to St. Clement, of course, and the empty lot, of course, it sits between the school and the parking lot that we own as well. Basically, what was decided at this point and what was recommended, of course, by the Property Review Committee was to actually not to actually move forward with the accepting of the proposal at this point until the Vine Street Master Plan could be completed. It was discussed that that would be premature to sell the property right at this point until a complete review of the Vine Street corridor could be completed at this point. There's not an exact timeline with that, but the discussion being is that the overall evaluation of Vine Street could be done. At that point, some recommendations could be made to assist with the congestion and drop-off and pickup issues, and potentially at that point could be discussed as to whether or not the property would then be available for purchase. But the recommendation being, again, until the actual master plan would be completed, that we feel that it would be premature. As far as, again, that is news to the whole board as a whole, that of course that the Property Review Committee, of course, is making that recommendation. But at this point, I'd like to entertain discussion amongst the board if anyone has comment on that. And again, at the end of the meeting, if anyone has, as far as audience participation, again, any comments or questions could come at that point. As far as the Vine Street Master Plan, what I would like to do, if possible, make a proposal that we actually look for an alternative to that of Heritage Ohio. At this point, while we are still working through, a very intense portion with the developer and trying to work through the shopping center redevelopment plan, that the time in which it would take for the type of study and the magnitude of that study, where basically they would just act as advisors, creating a board. My intent would be to still have a similar type of a study done, but not so labor-intensive on us, where we would be able to potentially look at some other options where, again, they would give us the guidance. We would still have stakeholders involved, community members, business members, and so forth. It still would have input, but it wouldn't operate quite like exactly like a board where we would still have to do all of the work. Yes, there could be a potential that it could cost us a little more, but I feel that it would be more appropriate at this time because we don't have I don't feel that our board has the time to actually dedicate to the type of study that was going to be done with Heritage Ohio originally, and the timing in which it got delayed when they could not move forward with the process because of being in the middle of the pandemic, or wouldn't do that. I feel that we would need to put out, again, an RFQ for proposals and allow for potential opportunities to be submitted to us so that we could look at what would be available locally, even where, even if, anywhere out of Cincinnati, but could work with us through that process.
Mr. President, on that front, I'm fine, going outside of Heritage Hill. I know, we've had plans in the past before, the Bridge to Nowhere, I think was one of them. But do we have those plans and do we know who worked on those previous plans?
So there have been a couple of plans that have been conducted over the years. The last actual comprehensive plan that I could find in St. Bernard was from the early 2000s. It might have even been 1998. Aside from that, there have been studies that have been done by UC and by students, but I think the intent with this would be to issue a request for qualifications to see, locally, regionally, if there are any firms that, have ideas for how we should conduct this and make it something that doesn't sit on a shelf, make it really implementable, something that has an action step matrix and all of that, so that we're really, we're at the point where we're ready to move forward and figure out what the end uses should be. So I think that's the goal here.
So one of the, just to let you know, just kind of focusing back on the Heritage Ohio, because they basically are the administrator for the, the Main Street America plan, is that if you were to go through with their project, yes, it's the right system, and I think the whole idea is that we would put together the type of plan that we would want and how the actual potential group might advise us through that. But the issue being is that if you read into the Heritage Ohio option a little further, it moves forward with you becoming a fully accredited, Main Street America, whether we want to, and you actually, they're saying that you need to actually employ somebody that would actually maintain that level of responsibility. That at this point, I think that would be a little premature. And once we're able to then incorporate further, once we're able to have, say the potential for the position of village administrator, that kind of thing, someone with the economic development experience, that sort of thing, this would go hand in hand. But the idea would be is to not just pay somebody to go forward and say, okay, bring us a plan. We would still be working with that and all the way through the process, so that we would, again, have the stakeholders, we would have those that have a vested interest, and we would have a say in the type of plan. And it's not meant to have something to put on a shelf, but as far as just the actual labor-intensive side of actually constructing the plan, I don't think we can do what Heritage Ohio really had put forward.
I agreed with all that. It sounds like you were asking for literally the last time that a plan was put together.
Yeah, it sounds like.
It sounds like not.
I think it was 1995.
That was the, or after that, all put together, drawings or mock-up or something, okay. So do you need approval to go out for RFQs, or what are you?
So At this point, we would like to put together a sample RFQ to bring forward to the next meeting, hopefully, and then that to be approved at that point. But the intent is to move forward in that direction and allow everyone to vote on it at that point, and then we can go ahead and get that posted. And the goal would be to, have this, if we can agree, and we actually get, some proposals submitted, that we're able to move forward with something like that, early part of next year.
Jonathan, are we missing any deadlines or anything with the Heritage Ohio people? Is there any reason why we can't do this concurrently, and then if the RFQP, whatever it is, comes back and it's excessively expensive or we don't like it, we can just continue with Heritage Ohio?
We haven't signed any agreements with Heritage Ohio. We haven't made any deposits. There's no retainers, anything like that at this point. It's a matter of working with Heritage Ohio's schedule, and the biggest issue had been is that, I refuse to virtually do a master planning process. I need to go back and verify whether or not, again, they're back to the site visits. That was going to be the biggest difficulty in trying to actually entertain an option where you're trying to facilitate, a process where you're having all of the stakeholders and everyone available. I don't think we can do that via Zoom. I think that again, I think that, the on-site visit is very important, and actually having, those involved be able to be right here, in our Vine Street corridor and look and actually live and feel that for a period of time, whether it be a several day, time, whatever it might be. But they set a stringent timeline, and once they're in the process. So I wouldn't be in favor of trying to do it concurrently, because you're almost I'm not saying wasting resources, but I would rather look to see before we would move forward with anything, I'd like to see what other options are available, and we may cycle back to the Heritage Ohio option again.
That's what I was really asking.
Oh.
We still have the ability to go back if we don't like what we see in the
Just-
RFPs. We're not
Correct.
ending that relationship to where we
No,
can't
not
go
at all.
back.
It's just
Yeah.
because we've never signed a commitment.
That's
We
what
could
my
always,
question
yeah,
was,
we could
yeah.
always go back. And, the executive director, I think is still open to, assisting if we want to go forward with something like that.
I think one of the big things here as well is that, what Heritage Ohio would provide to us is really kind of an outline and a framework for how to move forward with some recommendations, but then it would be up to us to really take that from there and come up with solid, courses of action, and to really formulate those recommendations in a way that works for our community longer term. Whereas this kind of opens up the realm of a more in-depth community engagement process, so that, if there are issues that are happening along Vine Street, we're hearing from everyone, making sure that it's not like a one-day visit from Heritage Ohio necessarily. Maybe this is, several sessions where people are providing input, and that way we can just make sure that it's a really comprehensive look at things.
Okay. As far as shopping center leases, I had brought forward to the board previously, and we had discussed the terms for Dollar General. As you're aware, again, their lease expires at the end of December. What we had discussed previously was that it would be month to month with a 60-day termination notice. Basically, where they are at this point, Dollar General has reached back out, and they would like to still stay and agree to the month to month, but they said 60 days is not reasonable for them to close down an operation and move everything out. They said they would need 90 days. So in doing so, I made sure that I reached out, of course, obviously, to the developer. So if, depending on a timeline, once that's established, that we were not crippling ourselves with that process, and the developer agreed that 90 days is not an issue for them. And that would still allow us to continue that revenue stream, at least until our agreement with the developer is finalized. So at this point, because we previously voted on 60 days, I would ask that we entertain a motion, and of course we would be voting, to extend that to a 90-day termination notice so that they can continue with their month-to-month operation.
I'll make a motion that we extend it to 90 days.
I'll second that.
motion to approve Dollar General's, excuse me, lease with a 90-day termination period. Jonathan Stuchel,
Yes.
Tom Rolson,
Yes.
Bob Culbertson. Yes. Joe Brickler,
Yes.
Peggy Brickler,
Yes.
Ray Culbertson,
Yes.
Chris Sauer,
Yes.
Chris Schildmeyer,
Yes.
Jerry Wiedemann. Amy Osmalley.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Lastly, under shopping center leases, the agreement with DAG Construction, as of right now, of course, we did a vote on that approving the monthly rent rate for them. Right now, the only reason that that hasn't moved any farther is that they have to get approval from their insurance provider. They have asked questions about, of course, our sprinkler system, our alarm systems, which are not operable, but they understand that. And of course, they needed the exact square footage, which I was able to provide for them. So that has not been finalized as of yet, and they have not moved in any materials or supplies, but it appears as though that is still moving forward. But I just wanted to at least update you.
Mr. President, on that, the only thing they're requesting is electricity to be turned on, so no water, no gas. They're not planning on heating the place in the wintertime or anything like that.
As of right now, yeah, so correct. The water is not turned on. The electricity has been on. So with that being said, what we had agreed upon was the rate of the $250 a month, which we would still assume the electric bill, basically, is what we're doing. And if anything were to go above and beyond that, as far as on the utility side, they would understand that they would have to pay anything else. But they're really not going to be running the lights on 24 hours a day.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because if they turn the heat on down there, I don't even know if it'll work, and I didn't want them.
I'm pretty positive it does. There's no-
Perfect.
I mean,
I just know we're going into winter, and I don't want them to think, oh, it's cold in here, let's put the heat on.
Well, right, too,
Have they
if,
presented any type of license document for us to review?
so they will be. So that will be forthcoming. As of right now, the first thing that they needed to do was to get approval from their insurance provider, because they understand that it is fully on them as far as for that.
but did I hear, are they expecting sprinklers, or are they gonna fix the sprinklers? Is that?
Well, they didn't say that,
Okay.
but they will fully need to understand that obviously if that is the case, we're not making any investment in improvements. They
Right.
understand that it's an as-is.
And if you have
Only help.
sprinklers, you gotta have heat, and if they have to be inspected yearly and all that good stuff, that's all on them. Okay.
Exactly. And hopefully with plumbing and electrical supplies, that's not necessary. Okay, Chris, do you have anything to add as far as the Go Active walking routes at this point? Just potential timeline to kind of just let us know what you're hoping, and maybe any kind of committee work?
Have we signed yet?
We have not signed that yet.
Okay.
So the next meeting would be to set up with their executive director, to sign that contract. We would get the check from Bob, of course, and can move forward. But as far as if you're at a point to, and you're able to move forward, I'll go ahead and we'll try to set up an email chain and actually see if we can't have her come in and we can work through that and establish whatever potential committee might be moving forward with this process.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm ready to go with it. So if there's anyone on this board that would like to be a part, this committee would be responsible for identifying the walking routes. It's a pretty short-lived commitment. So once the signs are up, I think we'll have a party and disband. But if anyone's interested, we'll be starting that in November or December with the goal of getting some things ready by the warm months.
All right, great. So if anyone has an interest in that, if you want to be part of that, please get a hold of Chris and we'll start working on, scheduling in the next meeting. As far as anything under open discussion or additional agenda items by the board, does anyone have anything? Does anyone in the audience have anything they would like to contribute or any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
So can you describe what the RFP process would be moving forward? How would we know when the timeline is right for us to maybe reapply?
So It would be posted. So basically, once, and we would need to make sure that once the opportunity became available, we would have to post it and advertise that and basically make that available. So the application itself, whether the terms would change or whatnot, it would be similar. So basically, I mean, on your own, you found our application. So, I mean, that we would potentially, if there was anything that needed to be updated, but at the point that we were able to work through the master planning process, the goal would be with that, whether there be additional traffic studies and other research, we feel that we could better assist and in making some of those decisions that would also help complement what you're trying to do. And again, if we can make the property available, we will. And again, we'll make sure that there's plenty of notice put out. So I cannot give the exact timeline on that. Again, once we're able to retain, a firm to be able to advise us through the process, and the goal would be to, for basically 2022 would be our time frame for the master planning process. Our goal, honestly, was to have had this done already, but it was not possible. Anyone else in the audience have any questions? At this point, is there a motion to adjourn?
I second it.
Okay, so,
Temporarily unadjourned.
okay, I'm fine with it. So Meredith is posing a question, do we need to change our meeting, because it's Tuesday the 23rd? Is anyone going to be out of town?
Okay, never mind.
My
Okay.
only thought would be with the expectation that that term sheet is probably going to come over here shortly, and the developer will likely want to be here at the next meeting. We might want to keep this as it is right now if nobody has conflicts, but with the expectation that that could change if we need to accommodate their schedules. Potentially, or a week later, I don't know, but I think we just need to take that into account.
All right, again, at this point, we'll assume that the next meeting will be Tuesday, November 23rd. If indeed that needs to be changed, we'll make sure that communication is sent out so that we can accommodate the developer. So at this point, since we've already made a motion, we'll be adjourned.